When you think of the Nashville Predators, you think of
the trailer assistance, he hit the post, rebound, score!
But what goes on behind the scenes in the equipment room, most fans don't know. Pete Rogers, head equipment manager of the Predators, is one out of a handful of employees that have been with the team since its inception back in 1998. And it's his job to make sure everything goes smoothly on the ice for each player.
To put everything in a nutshell, I want a player going on the ice and not having to worry about his skates. Make sure he's got the right equipment, the right stick. We want them to be able to perform to the best of their abilities given the equipment they have.
And his contributions to the team don't go unnoticed.
Well, one thing I notice a lot is when I'm traveling with the group is just you appreciate how much those guys do, how much detail Pete Rogers and his group that he manages just go, that holds everything together. The amount of stuff that a hockey player carries around, all the little meticulous details. And so you have to have the best attention to detail, and that's where I think Pete Rogers really stands out.
And Rogers has spent most of his life in a hockey equipment room.
My neighbor growing up was the trainer for the Rochester Americans, and he asked me if I wanted to help out part-time, probably back when I was in 7th or 8th grade. So I came down, started hanging around the rink, working the practices, working the games, and kind of did it all through high school and all through college. I worked in the East Coast League for a year. I thought, if I don't make it out of here in a year, I'm not coming back. I got hired in Rochester, my hometown team. They had an opening. My second last year, we played the Portland Pirates in the Calder Cup Finals, which is the equivalent of the Stanley Cup in that league. And the coach on the visiting team was Barry Trotz. I got to know Barry. Lo and behold, 2 years later, this job becomes open. He called me, and after one of our games, I drove in here, interviewed, and was hired immediately. It was a long road, but it's worked out well coming to Nashville. I never could have envisioned myself living here 20 years ago.
And Rogers has a set routine he follows on each game day.
I spend most of my days getting ready for the next day. So like after a typical, we didn't skate today, but after a typical practice, we would go around and check everybody's steel to make sure that nobody has any bad edges. On a game day, we probably start here at 7:30, 8 o'clock, and nothing's, finish skates up that need to be done, do some paperwork. The players start coming in around 9:30. And they always have, there's always little things to do, get stuff ready.
Rogers looks back fondly on the early days of the team, and he's excited about the rapid growth of the sport in Nashville.
It's pretty cool to look back on it now when you see the development and the growth of the team. Back then, gosh, the place was half full. People didn't really know hockey. But I give our management so much credit. David Poyle and Barry Trotz, we always fielded a competitive team. But to watch the game grow, they've added rinks, more kids are playing. You guys, you've been here, you've known the Predators your whole life. But, the early years, nobody knew what hockey was. It's been neat to watch it grow to where it is right now, and I'll go walk around the concourse here. There's so much life in this building. During games, there's entertainment.
Rogers works his dream job, and he has a positive message for those trying to find their dream jobs.
I would tell, follow your passion. I almost ended up doing this job, not accidentally. I always enjoyed it, and I remember telling my father after I graduated from college, I'll give this a year and see where it goes. You should always pursue whatever your passion, whatever your dream is. You don't ever want to work a job where you wake up every day and you're miserable to go to work. I get the opportunity to watch the best athletes perform at the highest level every day, and that's pretty cool.